Welcome back to the Ladies of Lorcana Project. I'm your host, Lady Lore. Welcome to the Ladies of Lorcana Project. Today, I am so excited to welcome our guest, Brittany Robertson. Brittany is an Arizona-based Lorcana content creator and competitive Lorcana player. She is one of the 3 Lorcana Muses and is known for her innovative deck builds, her love of Disney villains, and passion for storytelling. Welcome, Brittany. I am so happy to have you on the show today.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here.
So, as I was describing your different roles in the community, I think one thing that's clear is that you do wear multiple hats. So, how do you identify your primary role in Lorcana?
Well, I feel like it's adapted and changed over playing the game. Originally, I was just playing just to learn the game, and then I became more competitive in the game. And then my friend Stephanie was like, "Hey, I really just want to be able to talk about the game." And so we started our podcast. It's transitioned over time. I do feel like my biggest role at the moment right now is just helping build Lorcana community through the podcast and our socials and just being active member of the Arizona Lorcana community. But for myself, I consider myself on the edge of competitive play because I feel like I'm just right there, not quite at the high level, but I'm past a certain level. I don't know. It's just kind of in transition at all times.
It sounds like you've had different chapters in your story, in your Lorcana journey. How did it all begin for you? How did you pick up Lorcana? Were you in other TCGs?
I played Magic for a hot minute with my husband, and I enjoyed the game. I just wasn't crazy about the community of players that we were playing with, and the game is very complicated for Magic. And I was fine. Like I understood the game. It was just overwhelming at times, just the amount of things that could happen. And I mostly just played Commander, but I love Disney, and I've always loved Disney. And when we heard that there was going to be a Disney game coming out, I was super excited, but we didn't actually get to play Lorcana until like the very end of first chapter because of product availability and timing.
Right.
Like just the timing of when the game came out just wasn't really working for us as a family. And so we played pretty much from set 2 on consistently. And we've played at several different local stores, and we really enjoy it. My husband and I play together a lot, and then we have a group of friends that play together as a core group regularly. Like we play together, all of us play together on Fridays, but then past that we play at different stores depending on the day of the week. Sometimes I play up to 5 times a week at different stores. Very much not right now. This is my busy season, but I have played up to 5 times a week at different stores around the valley, and I think that has helped like increase my competitiveness and ability to adapt and change to like what is in the meta and things like that.
Yeah, that's incredible that you have the opportunity to play that much. I know that's something that you and I have talked about outside of podcasting, that we are very fortunate to be living in the Phoenix Valley, which, for those of you, if you're not familiar, is a very large geographic region. Brittany and I live probably, an hour away from one another on kind of opposite sides of the valley. And yet there's so many game stores throughout that offer play nights. So when you started off, were you playing primarily with friends and family at home, or did you join quickly into playing at game stores and leagues?
Well, Daryl's my husband. Daryl and I played at home a little bit, but for the most part, we played with friends and family at the stores. And Daryl's family played a lot with us right when the game first started as well. And so, like, we had a lot of people to play with regularly. And then we eventually moved from the store we originally started at to another store that was a little bit more centralized to play with more people. And so we definitely we transitioned from just playing with friends and family to playing with everybody now. And now we consider the people that we play with our friends as well. But like our friends from before this game,
Right.
like
Pre-Lorcana
also
friends.
pre-Lorcana friends and Lorcana friends. Like it's definitely like I feel like we've built a family of Lorcana players that we play with on the regular, and like we have a group chat and we have our Discord for Arizona and things like that, where we just like have slowly but surely built up this community of players that is just like it feels nice to be a part of.
I think that fits right along with your role as being this community builder, getting to be there early, having that family side of things, but then spreading and creating our, as many people say, chosen family. What has been one of your favorite memories from being a part of the Lorcana community?
Okay, I think that's the most difficult question because I love the experience as a whole. Like I think like every part of it has different valuable pieces. I love having theme nights. I love having competitive events. I love traveling to play Lorcana. So picking one memory is very difficult. I do really loved going to the DLC in Las Vegas because we had so many of our Arizona Lorcana players go, and then it was just so fun to be like in a new environment together, and then we were able to introduce people that we had seen at other DLCs to our Lorcana family. And if I had to choose one, I really liked the DLC in Las Vegas. It's also kind of exciting and fun to go to these DLCs because it feels weird, but like I'm recognized there. And so it's awkward because I don't necessarily feel like I'm recognizable in most instances. Like locally, that makes more sense because I play all the time. But like they recognized me, or we went and they recognized our voices when we were in California for the nationals events, and I was just like, that's wild to me, right? So it's one of those things where you like check your ego, but also like
Yeah.
be a little excited about being recognized in that space.
So that has been something that's really neat about your journey and experience. And, fortunately, I'm getting a chance to speak with all of the muses and get to know you all on an individual basis. But you guys started this podcast, and it's really picked up, and from what I understand, it was initially a place for you guys to kind of share your ideas, like you were having these conversations, and now let's share them with a larger audience. For you particularly, what inspired you to get into the world of content creation, and what would you describe your specific role within the Lorcana Muses?
We mostly did it because we just wanted another thing to do together as friends. And that was one thing, like we were already playing the game and we're just like, well, I think we have a unique perspective and we were enjoying being able to talk about this game. Overall, I think that we're valued for not just our voices as women, but for our voices as a variety of types of players in our grouping. I definitely am the more competitive one out of our trio. And so like that's where my perspective is. I play competitively. I go to DLCs. I play there. I played at the LCQ, got to round 4, like things like that, where I feel like I am trying to be the competitive edge in our group. Like I'm not on the quite as high of a level, but so close. And I feel like that's something that I try to bring is like, oh, I'm transitioning and trying to transition into a more competitive playing position. But out of the three of us, I am the one that is pursuing that path the most. So that's at least my voice within the podcast. I try to think about how to play competitively. But I also don't play a meta deck or play the same things that everyone else is playing. And even within quote unquote meta colors or things like that, I try to at least have most of my decks are like 20 card swing difference from someone else that is going to be playing those same colors. So
Yeah, that's a significant difference.
I like to build my own decks so that I feel the most confident and comfortable with my card interactions.
Would you say then part of your role within the Lorcana Muses is to talk about some of those aspects of competitive play, deck building, preparing for events?
Yeah, I do feel like that part when we're talking about it now, if we're not just talking about just the audio content that we put together, I do edit our video content and we're going to be putting out more of that here soon. So I'm doing that piece of it. And then I also create a good portion, not all, of like our graphics that we put out for different events and like for our new episodes and things like that. So we try to balance who is doing what within the podcast. And then when we do host our events, I do take the lead when it comes to like the judging if for our tournaments and things like that, so that because we all have our roles and our strengths, so we try to balance it out so that not one person is doing everything. And I think that's great about having a trio is it's not just one of us that is responsible for doing all of things.
Yeah, because there really is a lot that goes on behind the scenes. You guys have your, your weekly podcasts as well as hosting local tournaments. It sounds like you've got some up and coming projects with the video series, additional short content that comes out as well. So what would you say is a behind the scenes peek into the day for you being a Lorcana Muse? Like,
So I definitely feel that in my day to day, I probably get on my phone way too fast when I wake up because then I'm like, oh, what's the new Lorcana news? So that's what first goes. Look at new Lorcana news. What do we need to do today so that we can talk about this? And then in general, like Stephanie does like most of our stories throughout the day because she works from home and so she has the ability to be able to make some of the short form content that's like really up to the minute, and she replies on X and things like that for questions. I try to answer as many questions as I can for because we do have people that are constantly asking us questions on our socials and like having interactions that way. So that's the first thing, is just like making sure we're staying up to date with the communicating with the people that, are talking to us about the game and talking to us about our content. Next thing is we kind of do like an outline for the week for whatever we're going to talk about, because we record once a week for our audio content. And so sometimes we do like a bullet point list of things like, oh, we don't want to forget that we want to talk about this at some point. So we have like an ongoing list. It depends on the day. So like Tuesday is our main audio recording day. And so go to work, like do a little bit of conversation about that. And then we go and record, and we record for a much longer period of time than what actually comes out because, we have to cut and paste and figure out what all needs to actually be in there. And sometimes we have to pause. And the great thing about just being audio, it's much easier to edit the pauses in and out. So when we do our upcoming video series, that's something I'm going to have to work on, is like how much editing actually needs to happen. So that's a transition thing. That's part of the reason why we just do an audio podcast, or at least that's what we started with, is because we wanted to have one less thing that we had to like learn to begin this. And then like throughout the week, like I try to play at a variety of different stores. From my perspective on the podcast, I try to talk to as many players and see what they're thinking. And I just talk a lot, right? I have lots of conversations with different players around the valley and see like what are they playing, and like are they playing a meta deck? Are they playing new cards? Like I like to see new different interesting card combinations. And so like that's one of the things that I enjoy when I'm playing against people, is like, yeah, I understand if you're playing a meta deck, like this is what it's doing. But I love to see some spice, right? I love to see like the addition of a Chenpo. I love to see, the addition of like the Ruby Raya is like the be all end all for me right now. That where you put a card into your inkwell and you can ready your character,
yeah,
etc.
that
And
readying character
yeah,
is
the
just,
readying character's
especially
ability,
in Ruby.
it's so good because then you can do so many other things with it. So I love to see those types of card interactions, and each store has like a different feeling and a different vibe. So I like to kind of keep my pulse on what's happening locally to kind of add that perspective. And so like for me, like that's the part that I can contribute, is like being able to go out and play more often because I'm the only muse that doesn't have any children, and so like I have the additional time to do that and a little bit more flexibility because of that. So I feel like that's part of my contribution, and that's part of what I do throughout the week to be ready to produce more content, is being able to play more. I don't enjoy playing on the computer and things like that, or playing like a webcam. I like to go and play in person more than anything else.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I prefer the in-person play. That's so it sounds like there's a lot of work to really stay current, to stay up to date with what's going on, that's a big part of your role. Like you said, you wake up in the morning, get current with Lorcana news, staying current with the community. That's that's a fair amount of effort to regularly be putting in. Like, one of your most favorite things about being in this content creator role, as well as what would you say has been one of the most challenging experiences for you?
My favorite thing was when we recently had some people come to our store and say, we were told to come to this store because my sister, who lives in Europe, listens to the podcast and heard about this store. And so they
Wow.
came to the store that we play at for our league night. And so like that is just like wild to me because it's like I believe it's like the Netherlands is where their sister was at, and they were listening from there. and they actually live locally. And so it was just one of those things where I'm just like, wild. Like it's just wild to me that we have international viewers and listeners. Um, which is it's fantastic because it's an international game. It's just like still kind of like one of those things I'm like, oh my gosh. Imposter syndrome for sure.
Mind blowing that the connection of the community, someone, thousands of miles away is listening and then is able to provide some resources for someone who's local to this game store where you guys are at.
Yeah, no, it was just mind-boggling. And we've had some interactions like that. We talked to somebody on Instagram at one point and then they heard our voices when we were in California and they were like, "Oh my gosh." And then they stopped. Like they didn't recognize our faces, but they recognized our voices, which is funny because most of our content is audio and we're going to be doing more video content. And we've been on other people's video content. Like we did Hobbies and Happiness and we've done some others that are video. That's been fun. Now, the most difficult or the most
Yeah,
challenging piece,
challenges.
I think that sometimes when I'm not feeling like the most sociable or feeling that I want to have longer conversations, we are always the welcoming party when it comes to Lorcana. And sometimes that's tiring, if that makes
Mm.
any sense.
Yeah, like almost a pressure to always be on
Always
and
be on
engaging.
and being and I'm like I'm a generally positive person. Like I'm not like just happy go lucky all the time, but especially because Friday nights is when we have our main league night, and I am a teacher by trade, and so like I am exhausted by Friday night, and so I just don't always feel like the most refreshed and happy version of myself in those times. And so that part is definitely more difficult. And I'm always slightly concerned with maybe I'll say something that might offend somebody, or I've always felt that way as a teacher. Oh, I have to be show off this certain public persona. But it definitely feels that way, especially with Disney content, because it has to be family friendly and you have to be kind with your interactions and making the right choices at all times when it comes to how you're communicating.
Even though this is Disney, I think Disney has started to show some of those human realities, in their work as well, of recognizing, there are challenges that we face. It's not all roses and rainbows. You talked a little bit about being a teacher. And how exhausting that can be playing at the end of the week. Who are you outside of Lorcana?
That's a great question because I'm currently in transition, so I'm no longer going to be a teacher at the end of the school year. I'm planning on pursuing something else. Education's kind of a lot right now, and I was like, I don't really need to go much more in past that. So I'm kind
But
of just in
you've
transition.
been in education for
Yes.
a
So
number of years?
this will be my eighth year
Oh, wow.
being a teacher. And so it's time for a change. And so I'm in transition, just like my card that I designed for you as an in transition shift card. I am myself in transition. I'm on a personal growth journey right now over the last couple years. I got married and I have lost 190 pounds, and like I've made like great big giant strides on a personal level. So I think on a professional level is one of those things. It's just the next step because I don't feel the same I did 8 years ago about the job and about myself as a person. And so I'm trying to transition in all things. And honestly, Lorcana actually helped me see my value as an individual more than my job originally was giving me that. It's actually been helpful. I feel more confident because I have felt like I'm contributing something to something other than, an educational setting. And
I love that connection that you were able to make to the impact of Lorcana and the community in your own journey. What are some of the positive impacts that you have seen on, whether it's your own personal experiences or just general community well-being?
in general, like I think that like I've noticed like big leaps and strides. Stephanie and I have been best friends for 18 years, and so I've noticed big leaps and strides with her personally, and so like that's something like I'm always proud of as her friend is like I feel like this game has really made her more open and this content has helped her like grow as a person. And so like for me, like I love seeing that in her. And then I think that I've seen that in my husband. Like he's always been a pretty confident person. I think that he's realized, oh, I have so many of these people in our community that like listen and appreciate what I want to say. And he doesn't do any content, but he does just he does a lot of community stuff. So I really like that it's giving people voices that didn't necessarily feel like they had a voice in what they were doing before. And I've noticed that with like other content creators, like they don't necessarily seem to be like the loudest of people in person, but like their content is giving them a chance to have a way to communicate with people. So I also just feel like this game, the community is a lot more welcoming than other TCG communities. And so I see value in like having more women in the space and having more people that are just, not necessarily at the forefront of these other communities for TCGs. And that just might be because the community we have grown locally feels more diverse. So I can't talk for across the country or for the game as a whole, but I do feel like it's a more welcoming space than other TCGs that I've seen.
Yeah, I that's the cornerstone of this project is having an opportunity to give voice to those who haven't had as much opportunity to have a voice or have the spotlight on them in their contributions in gaming. I think that the role of women in TCG world is expanding, and I think that's really exciting, and I think that in this community of Lorcana, as you said, whether it's locally, globally, that's something that we can really help to lift up. As a woman, female in the TCG community, have you faced any challenges or unique experiences?
At the beginning of playing this game, there was a lot more challenges because there were significantly less women that were playing. But I feel like now I'm having a lot less. Part of that, I think, is my confidence as a player. And so I don't necessarily exude the same
Like
confidence level, like the
tentativeness or
tentativeness or the way of communicating with people. I'm pretty like just straightforward and just kind of get to it. But I do know that that is something that a lot of people have and that show, especially when they're new to just anything, let alone a community that it is still predominantly men. Like even if in like our locals, I think we had 7 women and non-binary players last night when we were playing, but it was still 7 out of like 22 people, and so the rest were all men. And so it's just still like there's and that's our percentage is higher
that's a
because
really great percentage.
yeah. And I might even be off on our numbers. We might even had a few more women, but it was still significantly less than the men. And our percentages are great comparatively if I'm watching people playing Magic, like, and there's just like one woman out of the whole table. And so that's something that I'm noticing is we're getting better, but it's still not like equal. And I don't know if it ever will be, but it's better. I will say that,
Yeah.
like, especially at the beginning of the game, I had a lot of mansplaining happening to me, even if I
Mm.
was winning or even if I didn't ask a question. And so, like, that was always frustrating to me. Now, I think most of my opponents know that's probably not a good idea because I'm probably going to know more about the game than they are going to. It's not always the case, but in general, I play this game a lot. And so I know more about the interactions of cards than most people that I play. I play a lot. Like, it just comes from experience.
You've become a known identity and figure
Yeah,
for like, okay, we
absolutely.
know
So
this is a person who knows the game.
yeah. And that doesn't mean that I don't still have questions. I'll still ask questions. I'll ask for a judge and things like that. But yeah, I definitely put off that where I'm just like, don't give me that attitude. And that doesn't happen as often as it used to. Now, I definitely had many interactions where like there's still like sore losers and whiny babies is like my biggest issue with anything. I do not enjoy sore losers and
Mm.
that does still happen. So that's one of those things like it does still happen and it's one of those I'm just like, okay, like you can have
I'm
a tantrum.
I'm curious because this has come up in conversations with other female players. Do you feel that sore losership? Is there a gender aspect to it, or is it just, hey, I don't like losing, and I would be the same way with a male player?
I will say it probably depends on who it is, but the reactions seem larger when it's happening like with me versus like if they lost to like my husband. So if like it's a player like and they lost to me versus they lost to my husband, like there's a
So there does
difference in
seem
their
to feel
reaction.
like
It feels like
I
it, and I don't
lost
know
to
if
a
that's yeah, I don't know if that's me projecting or what
right.
have you, but in general it seems that that is the interaction that's happening.
Yeah,
Doesn't
it's
happen all the
interesting.
time, and it has gotten significantly less so as the game has gone on. But I also think we've weeded out some of those bad apples out of this
Mm,
community. Like
yeah.
that type of playing is just not acceptable, and game stores have told people that, and community organizers have told people that. And so like we're having less and less of that because it's just not accepted.
Yeah, and I think that's really significant that there is a shift and recognizing it when it does happen that that's still not okay. Being unhappy that you lost, yes, we all face disappointment. Sometimes that can be frustrating. We were really hoping we were going to win. And if there is that additional element of, oh, I'm upset that I won because I was playing a female.
Hmm.
What does that have to do with it? Okay, well, just because this player is this other thing than you doesn't make them less than.
Yeah, no, I also am always like, oh, when they blame their hand, or when they blame their altar gave them back all uninkables, or like they always have an excuse. And don't get me wrong, I've had some garbage hands. Like I have altered and had the worst hand possible, and definitely that is probably part of the reason why I would lose a game. But that's part of this game, and it had nothing to do with me being a woman. It had everything to do with me, just that percentage wise of my deck. 14 out of 60 sometimes just makes it like some of that's going to be uninkable and some of it's going to be too high to play. That's part of the variance of this game, is like that will happen.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
That's
but
the reason it's happening
that's
is
the reason
because
it's
of the
happening.
cards.
Yeah, it's the cards, it's not who you're playing against. And so that's something that I've definitely, I guess, grown a thicker skin about as we've played this game over the last year, right? Just like, or a little bit longer than a year.
Well,
So
what advice would you give to other women looking to get involved in Lorcana or TCGs in general?
I would first find a community near you. I would walk into a game store before they have an event and get a sense of the what the vibe feels like in the store. The first time you're in a store is not the time you're going to be playing the game. Secondly, I would also like try to like read the cards before you play for the first time. So like don't just buy a starter deck and then play right then. Like buy a starter deck and then take it home, read through the cards so that you're not playing as slowly, because that is a frustration point for like established players,
Mm.
I guess, when new players are playing. Now, I think that has to do with your community and just playing new players in general. And most players that I've played against or play with are fine, like teaching new players how to play the game. But having a little bit more knowledge about the cards before you play them for the first time will help with your anxiety level just as a player, but also just help with the speed of the game and being able to learn more about the interactions of your cards, so the cards across the board versus what you're doing, like for yourself, right? So
Yeah.
like not just having to read the card and be like, oh, what does that even mean? Like for the first time.
Digesting the information, processing
Yeah.
it. How does this mechanic work? It sounds like two main things really is like get a little bit of practice, or read through the cards at least to understand some of the game mechanic. And also I love the suggestion of going out to a store to get a feel of what is this place like.
Part of me was like a little hesitant. Did play with my husband all the time originally, so now I go by myself quite often too. But I always had someone with me, and so like that's also another thing. Maybe going with somebody else, especially if you're not as confident by yourself. The last thing though about being a woman is like some stores I will avoid like outright because the bathrooms are gross, and like
Ugh.
it's just one of those things that it's not hard to clean a bathroom. And it's not hard, like, as other players, like I get significantly grossed out. Do something other than have a mess in your place. Like both the floor and the seat like should not be filthy. And I shouldn't have to do like a concert squat to go to the bathroom while playing a card game. So that is just
Agreed.
like for me, I just like that is my be all end all. I have stores that I've gone to a singular time and I will not go back until I've heard from other women that like it has changed, because that is gross and I should be able to feel like I can go to the bathroom.
I think there are some general standards that need to be met, and sometimes those are not being met. So the cleanliness standard, I think, is baseline. Having soap, having toilet paper stocked. I can remember when I started playing, there was a store that I really enjoyed the community at, but the bathroom was just awful. And they had no soap. And I would sometimes bring my daughter with me. So I would stop at a CVS on the way there and get a thing of soap to take into the bathroom and leave there for everyone to use, as well
Yeah.
as having my own hand sanitizer. And I'm like, that's a level that I really like
You
no
shouldn't have to
longer
do that.
want to
No.
even put up
No.
with. And I will say on the flip side, I have also seen some game stores that go even like above and beyond that to things that I appreciate is having feminine hygiene products available, having a changing table to accommodate parents who may be having young children with them. Those are things that like I would love to see even more of that. Not just even these baseline standards, but come on, we gotta raise the bar
Yeah,
a bit
just
there.
raise the bar a bit, and I think that more women being in this space is going to change that. Just be as long as women are speaking up about it, because if the store doesn't know that you're not coming back because of their bathroom, they're not going to change it. If you're not saying anything about it, they're not going to know unless we're talking about it right here, and they're like, oh, maybe that's us. In the valley, we have a large variety of stores we can choose from, so I can easily avoid some stores when they don't meet expectations. Not everyone is that lucky because like they don't live in a major metropolitan area that has, 30 stores that they can play at.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your competitive gameplay. When and also maybe why did you get into more of the competitive side? Or was that always from the outset your intention?
It definitely wasn't my intention from the outset. I was just playing because I wanted to play the game. I love playing games. My husband and I, like, we have a whole room of board games. We play games all the time. It's one of the things that we do together. And so it was just another thing that we could do together. And it was a thing that we could bring family and friends in to do. But then I realized I was enjoying playing the game, and I really wanted to like win set champs. So that was my first thing, right? I wanted to win set champs. And so I went to the first set of set champs for the Stitch, and ended up winning. My current goal is just to keep at least getting a card for each set champs. Like that's my baby competitor goal is just like I'm always gonna want a card for each set champs. Like I haven't got a map for each one, but like at least a card for each one. Played really well in the LCQ for nationals, and then I ended up going up to the fourth round in the LCQ. My goal was to win the first round in the LCQ and be able to say, hey, I made it past the first round in LCQ. But then I made it like all the way to fourth round, and that was wild. And I played some of the best Lorcana I had ever played. I was very proud of myself. And I brought a deck that I had fully made myself. It's one of those things where I feel extra confident or feel better when I'm like, that's mine. I made that. And yes, I might have had some people like give me some pointers, but overall, I figured out like this card needs 3, this card needs 4. I'm the one who put Raya in my deck. I didn't see that in anyone else's list. I'm proud of my deck building abilities. I don't necessarily play the same color combinations as everybody plays, or if I'm playing on those same color combinations, I play it in a significantly different way.
Yeah, you've developed quite, I think, a reputation in the community for playing at a high level and bringing off meta decks. Tell me a little bit about why that's important to you or where that choice comes from.
Originally, I was just like, I want to win, but I also want to win on something that I made. I want to have that extra ownership of it. When I was like playing Magic, somebody was like, "Oh, you're only winning because you brought this deck." So I think that's an internal thing for me. I don't want to be like, "Oh yeah, I net decked this, and now that's why I'm winning." Is because like it's just a good deck. I've seen people bring a full 100% meta deck that won a big tournament and then do terribly with it because it's not just the cards, it's who's playing them, right?
It's
It's the
also the
pilot,
pilot.
right? It's
Yes.
also the pilot. I feel confident in both my deck building abilities and then my ability to pilot the deck that I built because I've thought through every single play line for myself. And that's not to say that I feel like I'm like the best at it, right? I definitely like there's always ways to improve. And I had been playing the same color combination for like 3 sets, and then I was like, okay, I'm done. I need to change. And so like for the last set champs, I brought a completely different set of cards, a different color combo, different deck than I had been playing up till LCQ, right? I like ended up bringing up Ruby Amethyst like location deck to set champs these
Switched it
last.
up.
I switched it up and it still went well. I was like, that's great. Like it's not just the deck, right? It's the pilot, and I'm able to be confident and be able to play well with.
Yeah.
Um, I use Dreamborn and look at cards a lot. I know you can see in the background here, I have like all my bulk behind me, but um, I like to physically look at cards, like and re-look at cards. And as I'm organizing for new sets, I like look back at cards like in my hand. I'm definitely a paper person, and so um, I like to reread every time we have new sets come out. I read through every card that gets introduced, but I like to go back and like look back at cards. I also like to open older packs from older sets and reintroduce myself to like just a pack opening and be like, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
think about that again.
And see this card in
So
a fresh,
in
like
a
with a fresh
fresh
pair of
light,
eyes. So what do you
and
see as some of the most undervalued cards in Lorcana?
I think people discount cards that are not rare and above. There are so many core cards that are common and uncommon that have great stat lines that are a awesome shift target that I think that that's a discount. Now, I think that sometimes people overvalue cards too. Don't get me wrong, I think Maui Shark is great, but I do think he's a little overvalued because he only works certain ways, right?
Right.
But I think that cards that have a little bit more variety and like variance in how you can play them are probably underutilized. I think that Amethyst is a great like version of this because there are so many Amethyst cards that don't get used because they are just using the core bounce package. But I think that there are lots of Amethyst cards that have just fantastic stat lines that don't get used. I think that's true for every color interaction. Yes, we have like this set of 12 to 15 cards that everyone just puts in their deck, and then you have hundreds of cards that are just not getting utilized. And yes, I know that there's going to be cards that are just never played, like it's not Baroque. And there's just like there's cards that maybe right now that they don't have a great interaction, but they have said as they've been developing cards that like they've had cards that will have see play in later sets. So I think that that's really good to look back and see what from past sets works. So I think that that's one thing is just to constantly be looking at cards. I it sounds overwhelming, but it doesn't take very long to be like, hey, today I'm going to look at Amber cards from set 2. All right, Dreamborn, show me Amber cards set 2, and you just read through them and just be like, is there something I can do in my deck that would do that? I also try to think about other people's decks because I play predominantly Ruby. I think that what's the best thing is to think about how does my deck interact with that deck? How does my deck interact with that deck, right? Like our
Right.
meta, we have a lot of steel players and we have a lot of red blue players. So we have lots of steel song, lots of red blue, and not necessarily just steel song. We have a lot of amber steel variants and a lot of red blue. And then everything else is kind of mixed in there. But I know that in other parts of the country, Blurple is just like running rampant. And so it's just one of those things where you have to know where you're playing locally. But then if you're going to a bigger event, you have to think overall, where is the meta as a whole versus where is the meta at your local game store?
That's a really smart way to practice as well as thinking of all of the interactions of what does my deck do into this deck? What are the things I need to be looking out for? And that's helpful for whether that's competitive play or even just starting to learn the game a little bit more. I want to shift now into our creative segment where I have asked you to create yourself as a Lorcana card. We have Brittany as a 7-cost uninkable Ruby, which sounds like that is on the nose. Floodborn Shift, 6, evasive with a 3/8 stat line with the ability of gain 2 lore on challenge. And secondary action, I love this. Don't be a baby. Players who whine about losing have to get to 40 lore to win. Flavor text, pack rush for keeps. All right. Well, tell us about the card you created.
I feel like I'm a constantly in transition. I kept some core ruby elements to it so that it felt true to the color. Ruby is my favorite color to play. I don't think I've had made a deck recently that didn't have ruby in it. I love the control parts of playing ruby. I made it uninkable to give it a little bit of balance. And it's a shift target. It's a high cost shift target because it takes a lot to transition as a person, and so to have a shift, so it needs to be a high cost.
I like that there was an earlier version and now we're shifting.
Yes,
This is now the
shifting, some
Floodborn.
change. Yep, some change, right? And then I did evasive just because that's a big Ruby element. I love playing. I originally only played with evasive characters. That's where my core was with. I played a lot of evasives. I played actually pretty aggro. I don't play that now, but I love the evasive characters. I had Rush on my card originally, but I'm like, well, I'm going to change it to a shift instead. And that's partly because Super Goof is probably my favorite card as a whole. And so that's part of why I chose the Gaining Lore on Challenge.
On Challenge, yeah.
And I'm a little feisty, and so especially in the way I play, so I felt that that was important because I challenge often when I'm playing.
So you're going to be rewarded for those challenges.
Yes, rewarding for the challenges. I don't necessarily know if I'm very feisty in person until I know you pretty well. I'm nice, but I bring the spice. I have a little bit of attitude when I'm playing, and I definitely wanted my card to have a little bit of attitude to it. But that's also my don't be a baby stat is like I said earlier, it's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people are sore losers. And I lose all the time. Like, it happens. It's a game. It's not that big of a deal. Like, yes, we're playing like sometimes in a higher stakes environment, but at the end of the day, it is a game. That is one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't deal with whining from children. I don't deal with that. I'm not going to deal with it from adults. So
you will be penalized. You have to get to 40.
Yes, you can play the game twice now.
Does that mean Ursula is a whiny baby?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But yeah. Ursula is my favorite Disney villain. I'm definitely of the mindset of like winning is fun, winning is great. I think that all the time as a competitive player. But if you lose, you're okay to be upset. Like being upset is one thing. Having a tantrum and whining about it is another. I play Pack Rush often, like with winnings from different games. And Dave is a friend of ours. We have played Pack Rush, and we do Pack Rush for keeps because it's more competitive and fun and just adds another element of fun to the game when we're doing that. I've gotten 2 enchanteds playing Pack Rush for keeps that way, so that's
wow.
It's a good win record for that.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of the Ladies of Lorcana project. Where can people follow you and keep up with your content?
We are on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Facebook, all at the Lorcana Muses. On X is the Lorcana Muses pod, where they're Lorcana Muses. We also release our podcast everywhere that you can have podcasts every Thursday. And we will be doing all of our video content, be putting that all on YouTube here very soon.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing that when it comes out. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Just remember, this is a fun game. You can find your community. It's a chosen community. And there's always wonderful people online if you can't find an in-person way to enjoy this game.
Well, thank you so much for being part of the Ladies of Lorcana project, where we celebrate strength, community, and the women shaping the future of TCGs. Until next time, keep embracing your power, lifting each other up, and making this a magical game for everyone. If you enjoyed today's show, please like, subscribe, and follow Lady Lore 20 on YouTube, Instagram, or Blue Sky.